And action. Which want to show y'all. Zeus is sitting right by me here. My giant buddy. Okay, he wants to lay down, so because it's super late or early, depending on your perspective. Anyway, my name is Ron, and I want to talk for a few minutes about sobriety. Because September 7th will make 16 months of sobriety for me. I want to talk about that and what I can learn about sobriety from the Boston Marathon. As many of you know, I ran 17 straight Boston Marathons, 2001 to 2017, and probably goes without saying, but I'll say it, that not all of them were easy. In fact, the overwhelming majority of those races, no matter how well prepared I was, and I'd say out of 17 Bostons, I'd say I was well prepared training wise for about 12 of them. The other 5 that I was way undertrained for, I just have enough marathon and athletic experience that, as one friend of mine put it, I could kind of fake my way through. It wasn't pleasant, but I finished. Anyway, point being, just as we see in sobriety, and one of the aspects for me is the isolation of sobriety. Some days and some time periods are a lot tougher than others. Well, my first couple of Boston Marathons, the first one was very tough. I was very well prepared and everything, but I ran a stupid race. I went out way too fast against all people's warnings. I went out way too fast. I wasn't prepared for the downhills. And the last 4 miles, I thought I was going to die. I mean, I really thought I was going to die. It was just brutal because I had never cramped up like that before in my life. It felt like someone sticking daggers into my thighs. And, but made it through. 2002, I was much better prepared, trained better, raced a lot smarter, so ran 4 minutes faster. I ran a 2:55. I ran 4 minutes faster, and it felt a lot easier. Now I was still tired. So, looking through the years, 2004 was, at that time, was the third hottest Boston Marathon record. It was either the second or third hottest Boston Marathon record. It was about 90 degrees officially. But that's at the airport, 4 feet off the ground in the shade. When we're on the interior, like running through Wellesley, on Blacktop Road with no shade, probably more like 110, 115, 120 degrees. So, the way to approach that, adjust my strategy. I was in shape to run probably sub 240. Susie, behave. I was in shape to probably run sub 240. But seeing that weather forecast, I knew that wasn't going to happen. It'd be a disaster not to adjust my strategy. So just ran 135 the first half, 135 the second half. Felt really strong that last 10K, but just kind of maintained. Again, adjusted for conditions. We can carry that over to sobriety. For me, alcohol. And the drinking itself isn't all that hard for me to stop doing. It's the social isolation, especially during these times of COVID, that makes it tougher for me. Other people, the drinking itself is very tough. was that thing of you have to just keep perspective, don't lose your head, as Queen said in one of their songs on the Highlander soundtrack. uh, don't lose your head. You have to just adjust to the conditions of each day, each week, each month. Take 1 mile at a time, as AA says, one day at a time. I can just think of so many instances along the way. There were a few Boston marathons where I wasn't so healthy lining up. I adjusted myself to that. Lowered my pace expectations. Zeusy, stop. Lowered my pace expectations, and now, I'm having to adjust to a giant white dog messing with me here. All right, Zeus. And I had, and just like we see with sobriety in daily life, had several Bostons and other marathons too that were just weren't extremely notable as far as weather conditions or how I felt. Didn't feel bad, but I didn't feel great. And just more normal days, as my mom said, whenever we decide what normal is. But you just keep going ahead, just taking each mile in and of itself. And somehow you finish. Now you have the fan support along the way, which is great. And we can carry that over as well to sobriety. You do have sometimes more consistent than others. You do have fan support or moral support from people who know you. You don't always hear it. Just like in any marathon, you don't always hear the crowds, and it still comes down to, regardless of that, no matter how hard they're cheering for you, it still comes down to you doing it. And I can think of one of the toughest Bostons was 2010, because that was about 6 months after my mom died very suddenly and unexpectedly. So I was very undertrained, and a big reason I was undertrained, a couple weeks after my mom, I had my running streak going. A couple weeks after my mom died, but I wasn't stretching properly. I was doing a lot of things wrong with my training after that, and I developed a case of sciatica, and it was really bad. Where you wake up and you feel like your leg is on fire, and that's no exaggeration. That's really how it feels. And so I showed up to 2010 Boston Marathon undertrained because of the sciatica. I still had the sciatica. I was in pain at the start of the marathon, even though I was all loaded up on aspirin, aspirin and Bengay like crazy. Still, it wasn't good. After a few miles, I couldn't feel my feet, and the sciatica, my leg felt like it was on fire, and for much of that race, I couldn't feel my feet hitting the ground. So, amazingly enough, I still ran 3 hours, 36 minutes for that race. And fairly even pace. I think I slowed down a little bit, maybe ran like 145 and 151 or something for my half splits. But, maybe that's like having a really bad day with sobriety. You have challenges. We all have our challenges, especially in these times of COVID. And you have to do what you can to adjust. You have to keep the end goal in sight. The end goal in sight is making it to the finish line on Boylston. So, especially that race, 2010, took it 1 mile at a time. 2012, Like I said, I had run the third hottest Boston in its entire history. Well, that became the fourth hottest because 2012 it was even hotter. It was 94 degrees, 4 feet off the ground in the shade at the airport. Elsewhere, when you're running on that hot pavement in the blazing sun, no shade at all, it's probably more like 110, 115, 120 degrees. I adjusted my pace. I was probably ready to run, well, definitely under 4 hours, maybe close to 3.5, but totally blew that out and just took it nice and easy. Ran a little under 5 hours that year because I wasn't going to worry about trying to set a record. Number one, when I was undertrained, and number two, undertrained in that kind of heat. 2013, we all know what happened then. Of course, no one had any clue when we lined up in Hopkinton, April 15, 2013. No one had any clue what was going to happen with the bombings. 4 hours later, my life was turned upside down. Completely turned upside down. I already had the PTS. I already had depression, anxiety, ADD, and so after that day, I had PTSD thrown on top of that. I wasn't allowed to finish that day. I made it up to about less than half a mile to the finish because I snuck past 2 police barricades after a terrorist attack. I don't know what I was thinking. But I do get, like a lot of runners, I do get laser focused on the end goal. That's kind of what happened there. And that kind of shows you how extreme we can take it. So, a couple months after the bombings, I got this finisher medal in the mail. Okay. But again, that turned my life upside down. Meanwhile, I was still heavily self-medicating. I was definitely self-medicating with heavy drinking and a lot of pot smoking. I would go to work sober, but every night after work, I should say, I would drink at least 1 bottle of wine, sometimes 2, and smoke a couple joints. Because that's what I did. I was self-medicating. And I was still running every day. It wasn't until 2016 I initially got some counseling and therapy, but was not the right situation for me, was not the right therapist for me, was not the right support group. And so quit all that, but I was still running Boston. Kept that goal going. 2017 August, I found my current therapist, and now I was still drinking a lot. I toned it down a little bit, but I was still drinking excessively on a lot of nights. I'd stopped the pot smoking. I think I stopped the pot smoking around, I don't know, around 2016 or 2015, something like that. It's been too long to remember exactly, but I was slowing that down, but still didn't have sobriety. But then I just made that decision last year. I'm pretty sure it was May 7th, 2019. I didn't write it down, unfortunately. I wish I had. But it was, if it wasn't on May 7th, it was within a couple of days either end of that. So that's why I picked May 7th, 2019. But all along the way, like I said, with all those Bostons, and this is uh, true for every marathon too. You have people on the sidelines supporting you, cheering you on, and everything, but you still have to do it. You still have to train. You still have to take it mile by mile and cross that finish line. And no matter how bad they want you to, I guess this is the best way to do this analogy. No matter how bad they want you to, no matter how much they love you, um, I still remember a lot of Bostons where I was struggling badly those last 4 or 5 miles. And those people, they love the runners. Boston loves its marathon and the runners. And they were pouring out their heart and soul for us, for me. Come on, Ron McCracken, come on, you can do this, you can do this. And now that certainly helps, but it's not magic. You still have to, bottom line is I still had to get it done. And of course, it's always much easier when you're properly trained. You have to just remember that regardless of who's cheering for you or not cheering for you on the sidelines, that it comes down to you. You still have to put one foot in front of the other. And that's every day. Every day it starts over again. You have to get another day of sobriety. So, just wanted to pass that along because for me, one of the biggest challenges of sobriety is just the isolation of it, and it's exacerbated in these times of COVID, of course. But just stay the course, just like running a marathon. Stay the course. Take it 1 mile at a time, one day at a time, regardless of conditions that day. Regardless of conditions that day, you have to just do it. Regardless of how you feel that day, you have to just stick with your sobriety and do it. All right? And, at the end of the course are rewards. The biggest reward, just knowing that you did it. And every time you pass a sobriety milestone, you can celebrate that. All right, everyone, stay strong. Reach out for help if you need it. And stay safe out there. Thanks.